All right, now that we're back to talking about more about motion, let's look at speed versus velocity. What are they? How do we calculate them? And other interesting points about them that we should know. All right, let's start with speed. Speed is the rate at which an object travels. Now, whenever we talk about rate, maybe I should write first and then talk some more. Whenever we talk about rate, rate always has to do with time. All right, so we're going to have some form of time measurement with our rate. Time. And in this class, it'll typically be seconds. So you could just write the abbreviation for seconds. All right. And since you're measuring a rate, it's something that's being divided. All right. So whenever you have rates, rates are always on the denominator of fractions. And so for our purposes, our speed, or our rate at which an object travels, time is going to be on the bottom. And you want to know how far your object travels, because that way you can see, well, it traveled 1 kilometer in this many seconds or in this many minutes. And so you have a distance and a time. And so your distance over your time, or distance divided by time, gives you your speed, or rather average speed, because you're taking into account the entirety of the trip. If you go to the grocery store and then back to your house, like, yes, the trip might only take 7 minutes, but you also have stop signs, you have turns, you have to find a parking spot, and so you're not always going the same rate of speed. You're not always traveling at the same rate, or the same meters per second or miles per hour throughout the entire trip. So we're taking so distance divided by time is the average speed, and we represent that by the small avg. That's a subscript of speed. Okay. So that's basically speed. Speed is relatively simple. It's distance over time. All right, and that gives us the average speed. And for our purposes, whenever we say speed, typically, unless we specifically say it, otherwise it's going to be average speed whenever we just say speed. All right, and so when we get into velocity, our velocity has 2 key components that we have talked about and we will continue to talk about. Velocity has both speed and direction. Now remember, when we talked about displacement, could be using a cardinal direction such as north, south, east, and west. All right. Whenever we're talking about velocity, we could also have north, east, south, west. We could have to the left or to the right, or we could have positive signs and negative signs. All right. And this is another way that we can see our velocity, what direction is it going in. All right. So it's like, well, how do you calculate velocity then? Well, you check out. Part of it is speed. And so all we have to do is, like, we remember the average speed, right? And so typically when we just say speed, we mean the average speed, because again, we're just talking about it in terms of the total time it took to the average velocity that you took. So you're looking at your total time, you're looking at the total distance that you went, and so you'll have your distance divided by your time once again. All right. And one thing that you want to remember, that whenever you have distance and time, typically for our purposes, it will be in meters per second. All right. This is our unit for distance and time. So what's the difference, do you say, between velocity and speed? You notice that velocity has a direction, okay? That's the important part. And so you calculate it, we have distance divided by time once again, and then we say, well, you know, did we go in a positive direction or were we going in a negative direction? And this will come in even more handy when we start to graph motion, when we start to graph our velocity. Until then, these are the basics between speed and velocity that are important for you.